May I please have everyone's attention? Am I talking too loud? No. About right, okay. A meeting of the Upson Historical Society is now called to order. On behalf of the society, we welcome everyone to the meeting and the program. Do we have any visitors here? Okay, would you introduce yourself?
Hey, my name's Ethan Jones. I'm Kayla's husband. It's nice to meet everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Lori Lindsay, and Allison told me about this.
All right. Any other visitors that are going to admit it?
Bill and Charlene Woodall, we read the paper.
Anybody else?
It was on Facebook.
Yeah, I watched the next part.
Yeah. Well, we used to be members.
We're going to extend an invitation to join the society, get the newsletter, and participate in our activities. We have applications on the back table back there. We also accept donations, and we have some books and publications back there, I believe. DVDs of our past programs are available, and I understand we'll be changing that technology.
They'll be posted on YouTube, so people will be able to access them through the internet.
Okay, did everybody hear her? Okay. Does anyone have any special announcements they'd like to make right now? Is there anything else that needs to be brought up before the program? Okay, We'll now turn the program over to Mr. Gary Gill, and he will take over. Thank you.
I like taking over.
Take over, I gotta sit down.
Okay, the sound about right. I don't want to be too loud. We've got it set for Linda, who is going to be doing most of the talking. Okay, again, I'm glad to see everybody here. This is a really good crowd, and we're about to have a program that is about a year and a half on hold. It was supposed to be held in March of 2020. You know what happened? The last program we've had was February of 2020, when Jim Fowler and Jim Pruitt spoke about the local Thomaston Upson Sports Hall of Fame. And Linda was coming up next, and I'd like to remind you of next month. You enjoy yourself tonight, I'm sure you will. Come back next month, and we will have Mickey Thrasher from Fun 101 and Danny Hunter, who are going to do a program on Wayne Cochran, one of Thomaston's rockers. So I think you'll enjoy that. Tonight is going to be a history of O.W. Jones and Sons Hardware.
Son.
O.W. Okay, it's O.W. Jones and Sons Hardware. And it's going to be presented by...
It's just one son. It's printed in there.
Okay, so it's a misprint. Okay. And you know what? Even back in the day when I was growing up, I thought it had a death. So
Yeah.
I always did. Never heard it any other way. But we need to understand it's the history of O.W. Jones and Son Hardware. We got it? All right. Linda is a Thomaston native and a member of the Upson Historical Society. She graduated from R.A. Lee Institute, attended LaGrange College and Gordon College, obtaining an associate's degree in psychology. She is married to Ralph Beth there, and they have a son, Brad, and a deceased daughter, Laura. For the past 25 years, Linda has worked for the Travel Connection in Thomaston, and prior to that, for Reddy Construction Company for 18 years. Linda will be assisted by her nephew, Zachary Jones, on a Microsoft PowerPoint. And I would like to say, when I was reading along this, the deceased daughter, Laura, I taught Laura and loved her very much, and still do. And we got along very well. Zachary is also a Thomaston native. He and his wife, Miriam, live in Thomaston. Zachary attended Upson schools from kindergarten through graduation and represented his school on the baseball field in middle and high school. Upon graduation, he enrolled at Gordon College, where he also played baseball, and graduated with a bachelor's degree in early childhood education. And Zach, I think I remember while you were playing at Gordon, didn't y'all go out west for some kind of playoffs?
We did. We went to the World Series my freshman year.
And wasn't that covered on Fun 101?
Was.
Did they cover it? I
Actually-
do remember.
actually
that.
interviewed me.
So,
Pretty cool.
that was big time. How far did y'all get?
We placed third in the nation that year.
Third in the nation on a college baseball team. That's great. Zachary then earned a master's degree from Georgia College and State University, and he currently teaches 5th grade at Upson Lee Elementary. It is Zachary's 7th year as an educator, and he has coached the 9th baseball team for several years. So that's a brief introduction to our speakers. And before I get Linda up here and turn it over to her, you know, if you've been around, if you grew up in Thomaston and you're old, you know about O.W. Jones. You've been in there many times. You probably have stuff in your house that was bought there. And just to show you how serious this is, don't forget to look on the way out at some of the memorabilia that Linda has brought in, including an advertisement program from 1933. And it looks what looks like a wedding gift box back there. You could get everything from seeds for your garden to fine china to a wedding gift. But to show you how serious this is, and then I'll turn it over to them very quickly. Like I said, you got things around your house that came from O.W. Jones. This weight right here is part of a weight set that I got there in 1970, in the summer of 1970. It's still in use. I've been using it since 1970, along with other stuff that I added to. You had to go upstairs to get the weights. I went up there with the models. This knife, 1971. I got it for Christmas. It was a deer hunting knife. And it's still good today, still usable. And then finally, this is just a small sample of stuff I've got in the house from Jones. This is a pack of rifled slugs, 12-gauge slugs, Remington, in the old green and yellow box. All you good old boys will recognize that. There's still a couple of them in there, and they'll probably shoot. They're priced at $1.49. Now you wouldn't be able to find a box, and if you could, you'd pay $10 for a box this size. And with all that, I'm going to let Miss Linda come up here and tell you all about it. Then you may have time to share some of your Jones memories. So Linda, you take over.
And I want you to share your memories. That's one thing I was going to say is everybody has a story. Their first bicycle, their first BB gun, their first rifle, their dishes for their wedding. And I want y'all to share those. And we can share them afterwards. Or if I'm talking about something that triggers that with you, just raise your hand and we'll do it right then. O.W. Jones was, my whole life was wrapped up in O.W. Jones growing up. Everything I did was related to that store. And so I'm going to try to share with you some things I remember and some things that I found through research. And I really want to thank the archives for helping me so much. And also for Gordon and Melvin, Harlan, and Jimmy McKinley, that pictorial directory of Upson County is where I got some information. When I was first approached about this, I told Ralph that there were going to be people here a lot older than me that were going to know a lot of stuff that I don't know or remember it different. And Ralph said, Linda, they're not people a lot older than me. I started off, my basis for this program was an article in the Thomaston Times in 1984 in which Betsy Phillips, she was then, interviewed Daddy about the closing of the store. It closed in 1984. In that article, he said the business began in 1910. Well, I knew that the original business was on the south side of the square where Slice's Pizza is. So I assumed he meant 1910 was there. But I quickly learned that 1910 was actually the year they moved to the present location. And they had been in business 5, 6, 7, Billy Johnston said longer than that, in the location on the south side of the square. But it had a different name and different ownership. There were 3 men who owned it. This is O.W. Jones, Oscar Walter Jones. This is Bonnie Davy's great-grandfather. Many people in our generations, I have learned, thought that Daddy was the son in the name of the store, but he was not. It was our great-grandfather and our grandfather. So Oscar Walter Jones, I don't know much about his history, but he was married to Mary Lou Davis, who was related to Jefferson Davis. And so when I was 2 years old, I was made an honorary member of the Daughters of the Confederacy, and I still have my certificate. So, okay. Yes.
Is that better?
That's good.
Yeah. This next gentleman is Albert C. Adams, and he is the grandfather of Albert Henson and Buddy and their sisters, and the grandfather of Jimmy and Tommy and Pete Adams. You want to say anything about him, Albert? Okay. All right, and the next one, this is W.S. Johnston, and he is the grandfather of Billy and Tommy Johnston. And those 3 men started the business, and it was called Jones Adams Johnston, where Slice's Pizza is. In that time, Upson County was a major farming community and a big mule capital. And so basically what they sold was feed and seed, tack, plows, all these things for the mules. Ralph tells me that somebody told him that they would bring the mules in on the train down about where Dairy Queen is. And sometimes they would house them in a building where the dance school is now, or sometimes they would run them through the streets to town, because there were businesses who sold mules in town on the square. One of the ones I know about was where WTGA is now, was E.T. Black Livery Horses and Mules. And in 1934, Franklin Roosevelt personally negotiated with Marshall Black and Will Trice for 2 mules, which he named Hop and Tug after 2 obstinate members of his administration. So mules was the thing, and so they had a good business there with the mules, okay? So in 1910, and I know it's hard to read some of these newspaper things, they wanted to expand their business. So they bought the building in the present location. It was owned by it was called R.A. Matthews, and this was an article telling about it, and they were going to sell out all the dry goods in that business and put in hardware and furniture and all of that. I just put a couple of invoices in here because I just thought this was incredible. This was Weaver merchandise next door, and you can go through a couple of them, Zachary. These invoices are written in hand by the owner of the store, "Dear Sir," in great, vocabulary and thoughtfulness, and you can keep going. And I just thought that was so interesting. I think Billy brought me this. John Deere Plow Company, St. Louis, Missouri, to Jones, Adams, and Johnston in September of 1911. Okay. All right, this is the location that they were in to start with. You see the O.W. Jones and Son, Feed and Seed, Purina Chows. You see that's right where Slices is. Now I want you to remember that sign, because I've got a story to tell about that sign before the program's over. So this would have been in about the 30s. All right, this is R.A. Matthews. You see the lawn, the road is dirt or grass or something, and you see R.A. Matthews' store. Mr. Matthews says, Neil may know this better than me. He was one of the charter members of Thomaston Mills and the first president. But he had died in 1902, and Mr. William Zorn was operating out of the store and selling dry goods. Everybody sold dry goods, which was everything, clothes and hats and shoes and jewelry and everything, okay? This is around 1910. This is a picture of R.A. Matthews' store. And this was around the same time, and you can see the top of the store there. Isn't that amazing? This is my granddaddy, and you'll learn about him later, but I just had to show that picture. And I don't know where it is. I think Bethel Street, I'm not sure. Okay. All right, so now they bought all the stock, all the fixtures, the building, and they want to get rid of all the stuff that Mr. Zorn had in there. So there are a few newspaper ads. So Saturday, September the 10th, and this is 1910, we are throwing open our doors and putting this whole stock of goods on the market at an unheard of price. And the sale begins September 10th and lasts until everything is gone. Okay, there's several of these. Hardware stoves and ranges, okay? Just great ads. And you notice they say at R.A. Matthews' old stand, they called it his old stand, okay? And this is some of the things that they're going to sell there. In the new store, a percolator. For her breakfast, there's no delay. This product is the most delicious coffee known when a percolator is used. How many people had a percolator? I still have one. And this is at the end of that big sale. They're thanking everybody for the last few months as they sold out so that they could move their own stuff in there. But they're still operating the store on the south side of town and selling feed and seed and farm equipment. Okay? All right, so in 1921, Mr. A.B. McKeechin bought out Mr. Johnston. And then in October the 15th, 1927, O.W. Jones brought out his partners and brought in his son, Oscar Davis Jones. So this is a picture of each of them, and it just tells a little bit about them. I thought it was very interesting that great-granddaddy's a Baptist, granddaddy's a Methodist, and they're all in all these different civic clubs together. So let me tell you a little bit about Oscar Davis. He was the only child of O.W. He was born in 1903. In 1919, so he would have been 16 years old, he went to work in the accounting department of Thomaston Mills, having graduated from R.E. Lee and Emory University. So he continued to work at Thomaston Mills for a number of years while he worked at the store, and then finally went fully into the business. And at that time, they put in everything. They put in appliances, paint, hardware, sporting goods, guns and ammunition, toys, chickens and ducks, everything that you could think of was in that store. That was the place to go. That was the place to go. It was the most exciting place. Okay. I just thought this is fascinating. Let's see if I can read it. Did anybody ever have a heat roller heater? Ever heard of it? Well, they're selling these heat roller heaters, and you can join the coal club. They burned coal. A $2 payment on the heat roller entitles you to have a ton of coal free. Where would you put a ton of coal?
It's not very much.
It's really not very much.
It goes on the back of a pickup truck.
Oh, does it? Okay. Okay. All right. Anyway, that's fascinating. Okay, also, O.W. Jones put out a monthly newspaper, and there's a couple of those on the table back there. And I thought that was fascinating, and Gary was quick to point out they were members of the NRA. Their phone number was 30. That's November of 1933. Okay. This is just another article that was published in February of 29, and it's just telling about the beginnings of it. And then, actually, this was still Jones, Adams, and Johnston, and 3 people were employed. I don't know if you would recognize any of these names, but A.J. McMakin, W.B. Robertson, and W.C. Powers. I don't know any of those people. Okay. All right, I've got a series of pictures of things happening on the square. This was the U.S. Army recruiter came to town. And of course, you can see the store in the background. And you might recognize Alvin Lyons, some of you older people, before he moved north of town. Okay. Okay, in 1936, an 18-year-old man, I forgot to introduce people. I forgot that. Okay, I'm gonna stop and do that right quick before I get to this. I'm Linda Jones Best. This is my brother, Davis Thomas Jones Jr. He goes by Davy. This is his son, Zachary Thomas Jones, and Harold and Lipsy Castleberry, who has been my best friend since we were in the cradle. There's never been a day I didn't know she was there for me. And you'll learn what her connection is right now. He was 18 years old. This is Harold Lipsy, Harold's daddy. And he came to work for the store, and Harold says she remembers him saying that they thought he would never make it. He was too young, he was too inexperienced, and I want to tell you what my daddy said about him. Mr. Lipsy was one of the best assets this store ever had. Describing him as a dead honest man, he adds, I always thought a lot of him. He represented the store altogether as far as civic affairs went. There was a lot of things I remember about Harold and Dad. He was always such a sweet, gentle man. My granddaddy had some health issues, one being depression. And he would often put himself into a clinic. In Macon, he might be gone 2 weeks, he might be gone a month. Harold would write him letters, longhand, handwritten, beautifully written letters. And I thought I had those in here, I might put them on the table. But he would describe every aspect of the business in detail, and with humor and with compassion. There were sweet letters. And my granddaddy would scribble a little note on the same letter and mail it back to him. So he had to run the store for quite a long time. And well, it came in 1936, and O.W. Jones died in 1938. So Harold became vice president of the company, and our granddaddy became president. Okay. This may be a little bit out of order. It is a little bit out of order, but this was in the early 70s when my granddaddy retired. And you see Harold on the right, to the right, and Tommy, my grandmother, to the left, and Miss Doris Pinkstaff. Some of you might remember her at the store. This is a little bit out chronologically, but that's okay. Okay. This is another newspaper, 1935. This is a coin that's up there on the table, and it says, keep me and you'll have good luck. And it's a penny. On the other side, it says O.W. Jones. So I don't know if they gave them out or what, anything about that, but there's one up there on the table. Also, I did not know this, every Christmas, they made a publication of Christmas carols, and it's on the table too, and supplied them to the churches in the community. I had no idea about that. That's just more of that. I know y'all recognize this picture. This is on the mural. So this is O.W. Jones on the right and Oscar Granddaddy on the left. They had the only skeet range in the county or around, and they'd had a skeet shoot, and that man wanted his character. And it looks like he wanted to hang on or turkey leg or something. All right, this was in the early 50s. That's also on the mural. This was a Shriners parade, and you may remember the Shriners would arrest local citizens and authorities and put them in jail, and you had to make a charitable donation to get them out. So you can see the store there, and I want you to notice up on the corner, it says Bendix Laundry. I think this is when the recruiter was there, but you see Bendix Home Laundry up there. And I'll tell you why that's important in a minute. Okay. This was a transportation parade. All 1,500 students in the county at that time, 20 buses, and 10 floats, one for each school, were in that parade. And there you see the O.W. Jones Feed and Seed is still there on the south side. I think that's the same thing. Okay. Around 1945, my dad, Davis Jones, had gone to Georgia Tech under a program in which the Navy would pay for your tuition if you majored in certain things and then served for a year at the Navy. So he majored in aeronautical engineering and finished in 2 years, went and served mostly in Corpus Christi on aircraft carriers and fixing airplanes. And so he would have been all of 20 years old in that picture. So this had to be around 1945. Daddy's dream was to become a commercial artist, but Oscar was not well, and he asked Daddy if he would come home and help out in the store for a little while, which turned out to be 37 years. Okay. Because the next year he met her, this Millie, Mildred Thompson Jones, and married my mother, and so he never left. So he came into the store at that time. So this would have been about 1945. Okay. This was the bicycle parade. I just thought those were fascinating. Okay. You notice every woman there has on a dress or a skirt. I don't know what year that is, but it was before we were allowed to wear pants. Yeah, I know you remember McClellan's and Maxwell's. Okay. Okay, this, you may know who that is. That's Miss Tommy. That's my grandmother. Tommy, T-O-M-M-Y-E, Barron Jones. Her daddy was Thomas Barron. She was the youngest of 4 daughters, and so he was going to get his name in there somewhere. So he named her Tommy. She's the best person I've ever met. Person. So anyway, well, let's go back to Tommy. All right, the feed and seed business was drying up because the tractor had been invented and the mills were going good and people had other things to do. So they cleared out the feed and seed from the south side and moved her gift shop into that building. And I didn't know that. And so she worked out of the gift shop, all of her housewares, in that building on the south side for many years. Okay. They owned a laundry. That's why I pointed out the Bendix. I always thought the laundry was in the back of the store, but Wesley Brown said, oh no, it's out there where Rainbow Pools and Spas is, next to the country cupboard. So you see, Daddy would have just come home from the Navy. This came off a DVD, so it's not very good. He's helping a lady get her laundry out, okay? And then that's Daddy and his brother Buck, who's 10 years younger, and I don't know who the other man is. So I guess that my granddaddy started him in the laundrette and then got him in the store, I don't know. And I don't know how long that lasted. Okay. The reason I have this picture there, I wanted you to see the big building, O.W. Jones, and then you see in the right-hand lower corner, the feed and seed sign, so they're still operating. One thing I forgot to mention was not long after the 3 gentlemen bought the store, there was a fire. Of course, they had no insurance back then. They had to rebuild everything. That's when they took that elaborate R.A. Matthews thing down and leveled it off. This was in 1945. The store got a shipment of shotgun shells, something people had not been able to get since World War II started. They allotted each person 25 shells, and the line was all through the store and out on the streets, and they sold out in an hour. I don't know what they charged for them. I wish I did. So that's...
My daddy bought a .22 rifle in the first shipment after the war, and I think it was early '46.
Okay.
And I think he paid $19.95.
All right. I love this. Announcing new Saturday closing hour for the hardware stores, 7 p.m. every Saturday now, just 1 hour earlier. So they were staying open till 8, and now they were going to give their employees more time to go home. O.W. Jones is on Hardware, Kilpatrick Hardware, and Thomaston Hardware, 7 o'clock. So this is 1951. Okay, back to Harold Lipsy. In 1951, Harold lived next door to Miss Eunice Noel, and the Joneses were ready to redo their store and move my grandmother's gift side over there. And so Harold sold that store to Miss Eunice Noel, and she opened Noel's dress shop in that building. This is an announcement of the big sale. You can see all the gift wares over there. So now my grandmother has moved over there. They put in a complete garden center. Many of you, if you're like me, got all your flowers from there years and years. Also, they sold parakeets for $3.95, but you could get one free if you bought a $4.95 cage. And I want to point out to you the people who are working there then. I have that somewhere, because I can't see it that far, but I want to see if you remember all these people. It was, I'm going to wait and see if anybody asks about them. Somebody surely will. Okay. These were the employees. Oscar Jones, Harold Lipsy, Howard Leslie, Harris Darden, that's Marcia Smith's daddy, Davis Jones, Edmund McDaniel, we call Mac, Miss Tommy B. Jones, my grandmother, Miss Annie Jo Salter, who was Shirley and Carrie Salter's mother, and Miss Jacqueline Black, Richard and Tom's mother, who worked in the office for many, many, many years. So this is where everything is now moved over there in the early 50s. And of course, you can still get yours. The only reason I put that here so you can see that old picture there of the store. That's Mom and Daddy when it was closing. Okay, we're going to stop right there for a minute now. Harold's daddy became vice president in 1938 when my great-granddaddy died. And then when my granddaddy retired, he became president. And then Harold died in 1976, way too young. And that's when Daddy became president of the company. And I do not have much pictures or anything between the 50s and this period, but this is my period. This is when I was a little girl, and the store became my second home. Davy wasn't born yet. Mama didn't work. If she had to go somewhere, she dropped me off at the store. And both my grandparents were there, my daddy, and I'd be there. And as I grew older, I would go there after school, and I'd take all my friends, and we would be mannequins at the window. And we'd go upstairs where the toys were and play with the toys and eat the bubble gum out of the toy bubble gum machines. And as I got older, a teenager, I would work in there, mostly wrapping packages. And then even when my children were small, I would work at Christmas and different things, either on the floor or in the office with my granddaddy, which I loved. We had a brand new bookkeeping machine that was humongous, and your chair actually went into it, and you would do all your invoices, and it was loud, and it was the most marvelous thing. And I loved that. So that went on till I married in 65 and then later. Well, Davy came along in what year? 59. He was such a troublemaker. I can remember, I don't think he was about 5 or 6 years old. And back then we were in the neighborhoods, and you always knew your child was at the next door neighbor's house or somewhere. So Mama missed Davy. She couldn't find him. She starts looking, well, the phone rings, and Daddy says, "Where are you?" And she says, "I'm at home." He says, "Well, Davy just walked in the front door from Greenwood Road, right up from Doug, to the store." So Davy went to work in the store in 1978, is that correct? And worked there until almost the closing. 84, right before it closed. Let me tell you what Daddy said about you. Oh, it's really good. It's David worked as sporting goods department manager for 6 to 7 years. He built it into one of the best and most knowledgeable sporting goods departments in the area. So he's going to tell you a little story about what he did with the guns and the archery. Okay. I can't move very much.
Is everybody still awake? Before I go there, you know, history first. My dad and people like Courtney Phelps, Dr. Dewey Jones, and Ruby Brown, Shelby Ellaby, Claxton Hudson, so many more. They built the first archery range in Middle Georgia that was insured, and it was built beside Perks Pool, and they had cut the mountain behind that with different tractors and backhoes and such, and made trails, and they had Chelsea bales, which is like hay but much coarser, and they had targets in different points on those trails. And down there where the pavilions are now by Perks Pool was just a standard shooting range where you could practice first and then start shooting up the mountain at different targets at unknown distances. So I was raised shooting a bow, shooting a BB gun, shooting a .22 on the dove fields, all that. And so when I got out of high school, well, let me say one thing about that first. Sergeant Breeze was our rifle team captain in high school. In my 4 years, in the 2 years before I was a freshman, and the year after I graduated, which is 7 years straight, we were national champions. In my 4 years, we shot 68 matches. In that period of time, it never got beat. So that was pretty awesome. The guns that were used were bought from Jones Hardware, and they were all Remington Internationals. But me being a smaller guy, I shot a German Anschutz, which is about 2 pounds lighter, and that's something I'll never will forget. All the guys on my team had dads like mine. They all dove shot together and deer hunted together and fished together. So the guys on my team, which were guys like John Trice and Greg Gill, Eddie Teal, Tim McDonald, Steve James, Danny Jones, John Trice, if I can mention him. We broke the school record 5 times in 4 years. Pretty awesome. But when I went to Jones Hardware, I've been shooting a bow all my life, and shooting guns all my life. And when I didn't finish Gordon, I attended Gordon. I just wanted to work for my dad so bad. And Oscar had already had me some college fund up, saved, and I just blew it. I decided to work for my dad. I just couldn't stand it. And it did develop into one of the best archery furnishings around, and I met a lot of people from out of town, out of state, that heard about Jones Hardware, and we were selling bows, handled with fists of all different makes and brands. When the store would close at night, and a guy or two had their bows and wanted to get set up for them, I'd wait till all the customers had left, and I'd shoot down one of the aisles of the store to target 20 yards, and get it sighted in for them, and then come back the next day and pick it up, and then come back and say you did a good job, or whatever it was. And that was a lot of fun. My dad spent a lot of time with me. He showed me the ropes about a lot of things. He knew I had a knack for shooting bows, and a couple of times Matt Raines or LaGreve Ray would call my dad up and say, "Davis, your son's got an arrow in my roof." So he'd come sit me down, and I was ready for a chew, and he'd say, don't you know I told you not to miss those squirrels in those trees? And I shot a bunch of them, but I did miss a few. I wasn't expecting the store to close in '84. I thought there might be a future there for me too. But when Kmart moved here, and nobody knew what Kmart was really back then, they had no limited parking. There was parking everywhere. There was no meters to pay, no chalk tires to move every 2 hours from, what was his name? The square, the cop on the square. Webb. Who?
Webb?
No, not Webb.
Aubrey
Aubrey
Hall.
Hall. Aubrey Hall, yeah.
He was afterwards.
Yeah. So anyway, and then also Kmart buying by volume, like they did, mass volume. We just couldn't compete with them. We had about $75,000 worth of structural damage up under the store that needed to be repaired. The sales had gone down the last 3 or 4 years since Kmart moved here, and the seniors of Sinbros saw it happen to them too. And the dinosaur next door, what was it called? Maxwell's, same thing. So we did close in '84, and Sinbros and Maxwell's followed suit right behind us. But those are great memories, and I miss it, I really do. But to this day, I'm still a woods guy, I'm a lakes guy. I stay on the lakes and hunt quite a bit, so.
Yeah, that was great. Okay, so this is quitting business. Actually, you may not remember this, the first big store was W.T. Grant, and then Kmart came after that. Yeah, and like you say, it shut everybody down. And so this is just telling where they're quitting business. And in that article, it says since 1907, we've been in business. So anyway, this is what happened in 1984. Am I still up?
I think it might have gone dead.
I think it went out. Okay, well, we're almost through. I do have a couple of stories before I tell you what happened after the store closed. One story I wanted to tell, and then Harold was going to share one. A friend of mine told me recently that when they were little, they lived on Mallory Street, so they could walk up to the store. Well, in the late 1950s, the hula hoop came out, and the boy who was 10 years old wanted a hula hoop so bad. So he walked up to the store, and it was their first day selling them, and he asked Daddy, could he try the hula hoop? And Daddy said, yeah, go out there on the street. Well, he was great, and he hula hooped all day long, and they were only 50 cents, but he was not going to be able to buy one. So the store sold out of hula hoops that day, and Daddy said, yeah, you take that one home. And then Harold has a story to tell about Luke Evans.
I'm telling this story for Luke because he is with his Boy Scout troop tonight. But he told me that when he was 14 or 15 years old, in the Boy Scouts, and the store sold Boy Scout uniforms at that time. Luke wanted a Boy Scout uniform to wear. So my daddy sold Luke at 14 years old a Boy Scout uniform on credit. So that summer, Luke had to cut grass all summer to make his payments for his Boy Scout uniform.
And he's been a Boy Scout ever since.
But that just goes to show the community, and of course, Daddy probably knew Mom and Dad and everybody else too. But Luke didn't know that, and he was so thankful, and he cut grass all summer to pay for that uniform. And he thought it was just, out of the goodness of my daddy's heart to do that for him.
Okay, I'm just going to briefly tell you what I know happened after the store closed. So this was 1984. And in 1985, Madison Lee bought the building with the intention of putting a shopping mall in there. He visited malls all over the state. He wanted to pattern it after the bottom floor of Lenox. Okay, so he's got even the plans drawn off where he's going to have like 8 or 10 stores. And he said if that's those filled up, they'll knock out some more walls and do some more. Well, about this same time, Western Auto had moved into the Maxwell's Dime Store building. And before long, they moved into the O.W. Jones building. So I don't know what happened with Madison's plans, but Western Auto operated there until about 1994. Yeah, exactly, until they went out of business. Okay, and I don't have a picture of this gentleman, well, not to that yet, but you'll all remember him in 1996, Warren Moore bought the building. He bought the Hotel Upson. He bought, I think, Rock Hill School. I don't know what else he bought to do some historic preservation. Well, they sat there for years and years and years, and nothing ever happened. So in 2003, there was a big Chamber of Commerce to do on the square, and it centered around the O.W. Jones building. They were going to reopen it. Anybody know Dan White? Okay, Dan White, go ahead, was going to open a rural life museum. building. And it says that he had purchased it from Warren Moore. But, he called me and asked me if I had any memorabilia. Well, I had that great big O.W. Jones Feed and Seed Purina Chow sign that was on the original building. So I said, oh, that'd be great. I'm gonna loan this to you for the museum. So the next thing I know, Q's Bar and Grill is gone in there because he never went through with the purchase. So you can keep going. Yeah, this is where they were announcing that Dan White was gonna buy it and put the stuff in there. So, okay. So, anyway, Q's Bar and Grill went in there for a couple of years. And, I had a friend who was working there, and she would ask him over and over if we could go down and look for that sign. He would say, that sign's not there, that sign's not there. I didn't know how to get Dan White. And so it rocked home for a long time. And one day Russ Head was uptown, saw a big truck pulled up to the back, and he stopped and said, have you seen a sign? And described it. He said, oh yeah, I took that to auction months ago. So I never got my sign back. Everybody knows Dan White. So, then, thank goodness, this beautiful place is now in the store. I think it was 2012 they started using it and actually purchased it, 2016, and completely renovated it. And it's the most beautiful addition, I swear, and I hope it succeeds. So that's all I have. Does anybody want to ask anything or have anything you want to share?
Yeah, I distinctly remember going up there to buy. They had everything for Cub Scouts and uniforms and the patches that you would need as you went up through got their badges and all of that. That was a big part of it. And I'm glad Davey brought up something. I was telling somebody a couple of weeks ago that there used to be an archery range out at the Perks Pool, and they said it was never an archery range out there.
My mother shot archery out there.
I think I did. I mean, it went on to
Early 50s when it started.
but it was stayed out there
Yeah,
until
I shot
there
until I was probably 12 or 13, so, yeah, probably touching 70, 72, somewhere around there.
So can you repeat the people you said that organized the archery range?
I can't remember who actually started, who brought it up, but my dad and Billy Brown and Courtney Phelps, Shelby Ellerby, Claxton Hudson, I know I'm missing 2 or 3.
Huey.
Yeah, Dr. Huey Jones. They didn't purchase the land. They got access to the land from Mr. Perkins. Maybe he thought that might boost his business too, but he let them clear that mountain and make trails for targets. And they have just a home-based range where the pavilions are now. Anybody can go there and shoot. Oh, I'm sorry. But yeah, they spent countless weeks and months getting all that cut out, and then come home covered in poison ivy, poison oak, and everything. But yeah, I was probably 5 or 6 years old. My mom used to always tell me this. I was on the ground playing one day when they were shooting their bows, and I picked up a copperhead, didn't know what it was, about a foot long, and my dad slapped it out really quick. Like what I said earlier, I was this to menace as a kid.
Okay.
I
Anybody
have
else?
things to share. You mentioned the fire chiefs.
Yes. Oh, yes. And I've been waiting for this.
I went in there, I used to go in there, there was a parent,
No, it was a minor bird.
Lineberg.
Yeah, I was waiting for this. Yeah. His name was Pete, and he belonged to my grandparents, and they kept him at home to start with. And there's a picture back there that my daddy painted of a dog they had. He was an English shepherd. Well, Pete learned to bark like that dog. He would just swell up and bark. So they carried him to the store as a draw. Well, people taught him all kinds of things. But one of my best memories is Miss Carter Fowler worked in the store, and everybody called her Miss Fowler. Well, the phone would ring, and it was often for her, and one of the men would say, Miss Fowler, Miss Fowler. Well, it wasn't long before when the phone rang, Pete would say, Miss Fowler, Miss Fowler. But I do not know what happened to Pete. I do not know.
He was saying to the lady when the lady walked in.
Go ahead.
He was taught also, I don't know about who.
This sounds like my
When
dad.
any woman walk in, he'll say, he'll whistle, say, pretty lady, pretty lady.
That sounds like my daddy.
I remember the bow making machine, when I was a little girl, we
Yeah.
thought they was, following with us.
Make
do the thing
bows,
to make
to put
bows.
on those boxes. We had the most beautiful gift boxes, and there's one back there. Anybody else?
Others want to share anything?
Well, I just know that when I got married in 1961, most of my wedding presents came from.
They did. And you know what I remember? The ashtrays. Everybody had ashtrays, and they were gorgeous, and that was a great wedding gift, Christmas gift, and the most elaborate, beautiful glass ashtrays. Thank you.
Well, I can remember.
Okay.
Yes, I've been over these, but I would never watch too little. It was a baseball, first baseman's been up there. And I was trying to figure out how to get it, I hate to go ask my daddy. Anyway, my brother, Mark, was 15 years younger than me. Older. But he went up there and bought it from me. I sure did enjoy that.
Anybody else?
Me a doll that sat on the bed that was flat on the Victorian. I think I figured out.
Oh, that was another thing, just real quick. It was
I
about.
can remember my uncle, C.P. McDonald, going up to the fishing. And you go in and being out in the, seemed like it was on the right wall. But when he bought a plug to set fish with on the Flint River, he'd buy 6 at the time. So that was sort of unusual that you walk into a store and would find 6 or 12 plugs just alike. And CP would throw that plug till he wore it out, and he'd get another one out, or he'd lose it. But he never went to the river with just one plug, I assure you. And when CP had heart attacks and he couldn't throw plugs anymore, he sold his plug collection off. And he had 2 wheelbarrows left after he sold everything he had. And he just gave them away.
One of my best memories was, and I know this was awful for the people that weren't there, but they all seemed so happy in the store. But on Christmas Eve, you could pick your layaway up till 11 o'clock. You know, and we would open our presents. We'd be waiting for Daddy and Tommy and Oscar, which we called our grandparents Tommy and Oscar, to come home to open presents. It would always be 11 o'clock. And inevitably, somebody would call Daddy. They forgot to pick up a layaway, and he'd have to run back to town. And, you know, that's just the way it worked. It was all about customer service and caring for each other.
Parents wouldn't have to hide the gifts in the
Right.
trunk of the car.
Did you have some?
I was gonna say one other thing. When Mother called me about doing this program, she was telling me that my grandfather had been a part of it. I had no clue. I had never
Really?
heard it. I guess by the time I got him, that was old school. And
Right.
never talked.
Okay.
Talking about Christmas Eve, I can remember one Christmas Eve, 12 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Bethel, England, had 3 children. Well, they were putting out all the dolls for Christmas. They didn't have but 2 dolls. So they lived over in Brookwood. So he came by the house, rang the doorbell, midnight, got Daddy, went up to the store, got one more doll, went back home. All was well.
We'll try that tomorrow.
Hey Linda, I was born 6 years after the store, 8 years after the store closed in '92, and so I never got to see it in operation. And but I heard stories growing up from my daddy from Atlanta, and but just to be able to put this together with you has just been an honor, just because I get to see all this stuff and learn all this stuff that you've taught me about the store and you've taught me about the store, and just goes to show how things were back in the past compared to how things are now, and I wish I could have seen something like this in action, and people that are my age could see things like this. Just kind of cherish the family and the community. That's one of the things that it taught me by doing all this, by just looking at these pictures and you telling me all these stories over the last year and a half. And every time we get together and talk about this, when I go home, I'm telling Miriam stories for 2 or 3 hours, and just off and on, and it's just a lot for me to be able to tell my kids one day, so that I have some family history here in Thomaston, and that it was special to a lot of people. So.
If it lasted, you could be at working there instead of teaching
Think
school,
so.
too. Good. Be a little, probably easier, wouldn't it?
Probably so.
What else? And Linda, just to prove, that price tag on there does say Jones Hardware.
I see it
Look at
does.
that.
I
Go
love it.
online, $1.49, box of slugs.
$8.99 at Boone's now.
We got a little bit of business here. First of all, we want to thank the people that came and did our program tonight, so let's give them a little round of applause. Linda, you and Zachary, we have a standing policy that when guests come and do our program, we give them a free 1 year's membership in the Historical Society. So you're in it now.
All right.
And, we do one of those 2 forms are back there. I guess they can have them unless someone else.
I'm already a member.
You already a member? Okay. All right. So
Does that mean I can get 2 years in?
2 years. We got
Go ahead and buy life.
I want to give this gift, Linda, you get a gift here. We have a standing tradition now. Let's see what's in it.
Oh, I love it.
All right.
I love it. It's a ditto with the Rock, which I live at the Rock, Georgia peaches, and probably some of the other peach. Is it other peach? Was it just that one? Oh, did I want to sell it?
The Rock.
Was that Herman Barker's place? No, that's Stephen. Laura used to work for Herman Barker.
And let's see, Zachary. I picked this one out. Come on up here. We're going to present it to you. I figure you might be like your dad and be an outdoorsman. I don't know if you are. So I chose a green one. We got all kind of colors. We got yellow, blue, red. I thought, let me get him a green one. And I think we'll do this. You know how when the new the pageant winner wins the crown, and the last year's one comes up, I'm going to do this.
Put it on my head.
I'm not going to hug you. Yeah, I'll shake your hand. Again, thanks for coming out. Feel free to hang around a little while. Don't forget to check out the stuff back there.
The artwork is my daddy's.
Man.
The artwork is my daddy's.
Oh yeah, that's the artwork. You forgot to mention that.
I did.
But it's back there. You did say he always wanted to be an artist.
He was an artist.
And he was an artist. But thanks for coming. We're adjourned. Like I say, if you want to ask a few more questions or chat, look at some of the memorabilia, do stuff. Come back next month to hear Mickey Thrasher. We won't need a microphone.